Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. I get the feeling this is going to be a little bit more positive today. In recent weeks, we've been abnormally negative, but on Valentine's Day, we feel a bit more in love with Rovers as the new era under O'Neill starts off with a bang. Here's a summary of the week. So Michael O'Neill is joined by Phil Jones, Stephen Davis and Damien Johnson in a new-look management team as fans hope it will be a marriage made in heaven. It is an open relationship with O'Neill as we share our new leader with Northern Ireland, which makes fans uneasy. The first date is a romantic trip to London as Rovers are king of queens in a 3-1 win against QPR, which helps Rovers rise from the bottom. Jorgensen grabs a couple and Murray gets his head on the ball, but people are rightly talking about the forward nature of the players. The penetration was superb. On a negative point, though, Lewis Miller picks up an injury, but the question is, has the relationship with Cantwell hit rocky times that are beyond repair? But Mark, I think that's enough love-related puns and innuendos for now. Happy Valentine's weekend, my man.
Yeah, happy Valentine's weekend, mate. There's not many better Valentine's presents I could have asked for than Rovers winning 3-1. I think your puns just made it even better, to be fair, Mike. It's been a busy week. I must say, thank you very much for holding the fort. For those who don't know, last week I was a bit busy. I had an interview, I had some work. I did manage to make the forum in the end, so I don't think I got home that day till about 10 o'clock. I didn't chair it, though. I was just, to be honest, I was there in body only. But, yeah, the minutes will be out for that soon, so we'll have a look at them. And but it's been a busy week, but I've had a lovely start to the weekend, got to be honest. Yes.
I know. I mean, I was a bit surprised, obviously, that we managed to get this positive weekend. It feels a little bit weird. It was weird doing a podcast without you last week. We did miss you. Obviously, we just wanted to stick something out there. We waited and waited to try and hopefully talk about a Rowett or an O'Neill, and it just wasn't coming and times didn't work out. So we managed to get something out there and then a quick management reaction as well. But now we can sit down, we can talk about the appointments, we can talk about the game, and we can preview the next one. So let's get into it. So obviously, it was the QPR game. We're recording this on Sunday, so it was yesterday. And this was our initial match reaction. What's this? A positive voice note after a game, a positive match reaction. What's this about? I'm not used to it, son. Oh, I'm just relieved. Great performance, really chuffed with the lads. It's nice to see some energy and trying something different going forward. I mean, just trying some through balls. We talked about how Cantwell would go forward and turn back and wasn't trying these things. And then lo and behold, we try some through balls and we get 2 great goals, in fact, 3 great goals today. It was just nice to see something different. The formation, it looked like a 4-4-2, which, you know, we need to break down that format. But it did look like a 4-4-2. We'd said about Johnson and Jorgensen trying to get them up front together. And it was just nice to see that. Okay, Affeline didn't have the best of roles, best of performances in his role today, but he did a job. Baraji, I think we need to figure out kind of what he's doing. But what a solid backline performance for the second half as well. You know, there was a lot of flashpoints there. I personally don't think we should have had a penalty, and I don't think they should have had a red card. I need to have a little look again. I mean, the red card situation, it looked like both were just committed, and I like that in football. And the penalty, I think Johnson just needs to learn how to kind of sell that one. But yeah, going forward, great to see something different. We'll talk about Todd Cantwell about not playing, but it was great to see. And then at the back, just great save from Toth, bodies on the line, people wanting the desire, the energy, like we said. Really, really good. Great to see Carter back in full flight. But let's be honest, Cashin, he's really good. I think he's really good. And I thought McLaughlin had a good game with him as well on that side. So, yeah, really chuffed with that. But I think the standout performers are obviously Cashin. Tronstad was prime, De Bruyne, Jorgensen for his finishes, and definitely Morishita. I think that was the best game that I'd seen him play. So, yeah, we need to break this down because this voice note could go on for hours with me. I'm just chuffed, mate. The results have gone our way. We're out of the relegation area. Let's break it down.
Well, Mikey boy, it's been a long time since I've looked forward to doing one of these. It's the first time it's felt like we've actually won in a long time. I know we beat Sheffield Wednesday, but it didn't feel like a win. Story of the game. 2 up top. Don't mean we have to play 5 at the back. Playing to everyone's strengths. Who'd have thought it? Couldn't really question any of the decisions. Played forward, played quick. I think that just proves the point that a manager who has some idea of what he's doing can make a big difference. Looked at obviously Ismail there, but I thought I was really worried with Johnson that we were going to stick with him. And I'm really impressed with the impact he's made. Listen, far from perfect. We'll break it down a bit, but got to be happy with that one. The big thing is, Mike, are we better without Cantwell?
Well, we'll get onto the Cantwell thing shortly. I mean, I was high as a kite. You could tell there. Coming off that performance, I was really chuffed. But I think because we've recorded on a Sunday, we haven't had a chance to watch the game again. So this is still quite a raw reaction from us both. I think the 2 points I want to bring up with you is one, we called for the fact that when we're in that final third, we wasn't seeing any kind of penetration through the lines. I know Cantwell got pelters for it, but the fact that he'd look up, turn and go back. So just for us to see the fact that we was trying something different in that final third, the through balls were fantastic, and we'll get into them. But also, the fact that we'd said that we want to see Jorgensen and Gudjohnsen together. So, I mean, it's just great to see that something we asked for actually ended up working.
Yeah, I think the biggest compliment I can give us, it didn't feel like I was watching Blackburn Rovers that I recognised. We played forward and we played quick, but not in the way that we have previously. Whenever we've played forward and quick this season, it's been pretty hopeless and hopeful at best. Long balls into areas, sometimes just clearing the ball. I think my biggest frustration with this mail, and I'll not keep taking it back to him, but was I felt he'd set us up and he was just kind of changing people like for like, or there was no tactical changes within a game. There was still no way that the team looked to attack. It was very off the hoof, other than get it wide to the wing and whip it in, even if regardless of anybody being there. And this actually made me more frustrated with the season so far, because I think we've already seen a difference in a tactical approach. The players took it on. And if players can take it on this quickly, it could have been done earlier in the season. Now, I appreciate we've had different players available, but we used people to their strengths. There was no rocket science that happened yesterday. There was people interchanging in positions, and there was some neat interplay and little bits of movement. I thought, yeah, that's nice. But on the whole, it was simple. It was a case of put people in the positions that they perform best in, play to their strengths, and keep the game pretty simple. And as a result, we went on to win the game. Now, there's a couple of points where we had a little bit of luck, and there was a couple of points where Todd made a really good save and things like that. But I thought we deserved it. I thought we played really well. We looked clinical. And actually, I'm starting to think now, we're only 13 points off the playoffs.
I'm not quite ready to be with you on that one. I know that's tongue in cheek, but I think I did want to bring Ismail up because it was mentioned a few places on social media yesterday about, we've now got players back, so it's been a good situation for O'Neill to come in. The players have come back. The likes of Carter and Gudjohnsen have come back and had a couple of games, and now firing a little bit more. And the luck thing, I do think that yesterday there was an element of luck with certain situations, but I agree with what you said. The manager came in, he played to our strengths. He obviously gave them a little bit more freedom to try something. And whilst I don't think necessarily 3-1 was the story of the game, I do think that we deserved to win, and that was just because we could soak up the pressure, and then we seemed quite calm. I mean, there was some nice times where we was passing around and we was keeping the ball, and then we tried that killer through ball, and that's what kind of made the difference. Ismail had the opportunity to do that himself. You know, the luck thing, I think luck is a big thing when you're down at the bottom, whether it's injuries or whether the ball bounces for or against you. And I do think we did have some bad luck across the season, but we did have an opportunity across the last 10 or so games to try something different, and we didn't. And we did yesterday, and it did work. I saw energy, I saw passion. The players put bodies on the line as well. So whether that's part of the new manager bounce, the fact that, you know, they're now seeing that they need to impress a new man, but the formation was slightly different. Was it a 4-4-2? I mean, what was your opinion on the formation?
Yeah, so I've watched as much back as I can. I've watched extended highlights and things like that. I was quite interested in how we were setting up when the team came out. I looked at it and thought, is it going to be Morishita in that number 10? I think that's a role we can play. Is it going to be two midfielders almost? I think it was pretty much a 4-2-3-1, but it was fluid within it. What was happening was Gudjohnsen, as much as his strengths when you list them, which is he's decent in the air, he can hold the ball up, and he's got really good fox in the box movement, would lead to him playing on that last man or playing as a target man. He's not really suited to that. He kind of drops into the 10 quite a bit, flicking the ball on, looking for Jurgensen, pulling defenders out of position. And it was a 4-2-3-1 really, but it had two strikers is the key element to it. Now, Ismail's had the chance to do that. He's had Ohashi, he's had Jurgensen, he's had Gudjohnsen fit for a couple of, probably 3 weeks now. He's had Morishita fit. He wouldn't have played that way yesterday. He would have carried on playing 4-2-3-1, but very, very rigid. And if Cantwell was out, we'd have probably seen Deneva play, and we'd have seen Morishita in that position. He's not moved with the team, with the players, and that was my frustration with him. But enough about him. I thought O'Neill's come in and he's praised Damien Johnson, but there was tweaks to that I saw that had a new manager look about it. Absolutely spot on about the fact that they were putting their bodies on the line. And there was an interview with him where he'd said he didn't say too much to the players because you can't do. Obviously, he's arrived at, 11 o'clock on Friday morning? Was it Thursday morning? But he just said to them, listen, I don't know that much about you and you don't about me, but we're going to find a lot more out after these 90 minutes. And that just gives players sort of the thing to say, actually, I need to make a real impact here. And at the very least, I need to work my knackers off. And they did. They all put their bodies on the line, like you said. It makes a difference having Hayden Carter. Of course it does. But even the subs, I thought, I would have took Jurgensen off. I thought I was a bit worried about him getting an injury. But bar that, I thought the subs were the right ones. He kept the formation because it was working well. He then had an injury to Miller. Right, I'm going to adjust it. But rather than square pegs round holes, just to keep whatever we're doing, I'm going to shift it about. Actually, I think the players I've got now at my disposal are suited to a 5 at the back. Absolutely don't disagree. I mean, how many times have we said Pickering just strengthens that defensive side? Cashin's more than adept at playing centre half in a 3. The all-back 3 are more than adept at doing that. And then I really, really liked when he brought on Montgomery and Forshaw. I thought that wasn't just a let's stick everybody behind the ball. There was real calculated nature to that. He sat 2 bodies that were fresh, would close down, but their first thought is, let's hold my position, which is something that I'm getting a bit worried about Baraji. But I just thought there was a couple of touches within it. He's not had loads of time to work with them, and I'm not getting carried away. I was tongue-in-cheek about the playoffs. I'm not thinking everything is perfect because it really, really wasn't. There was a lot that we still need to work on, but there was just 1 or 2 things that a manager can influence, and I thought what he could influence, he influenced right.
Absolutely. And you could tell he was making intelligent changes, and he was doing it quickly, which just shows the kind of experience he's got and the confidence he's got to do that. He was obviously surrounded by coaches he trusts, and you could tell he was taking on instructions from them, and that's really good because whilst you don't want it to be by committee all the time, you've got to surround yourself with people that are going to give you all the information you need to make the informed decisions and not have the arrogance to just do it your own way. And that's the kind of thing I took away from the first 90 minutes. And time will tell, it could all collapse at some point, but I just have a little bit more confidence on this one. And after seeing what we did, and like I say, we're trying not to be too over the top after one result. But it was just nice to see someone on the sideline that he was stood up, he was giving instructions, and you could tell some of the changes he was making was really good. I'm glad you brought up the subs to do with Montgomery and Forshaw coming on, because I did think to myself, there was a luxury to being able to take that decision, being 3-1 up. So when you're 3-1 up, you can take, you know that you can be as solid as you can. And if you have a moment where it goes against you, you're still leading 3-2. So it was nice to see him making that decision, because obviously. Sorry, I had a slight technical error there. I accidentally left the studio during my positive rant.
You're too excited, mate. That's what it was.
So excited. I knocked my mouse and just knocked myself out of the studio. So sorry. It was a nice luxury to have, to be able to bring that on and be solid. And I think that I saw Forshaw coming on, and he really did take that leader role again. And that's again, Forshaw as a footballer isn't of the quality that I want him to be. I want us to have. But as a manager on the pitch, you could tell it was like going back to what was the centre back's name that went to Chesterfield?
McFadden.
That's it, McFadden. A very similar kind of thing, being able to come on and just pull the strings. And we don't have the luxury to be able to do that being 3-1 up. So it was really nice to see. And I'm also glad you brought up Carter, because the one thing I noticed with him, he looks like a professional footballer. His size, his movement, his strength. He actually looks like a professional footballer, and he was playing like one. And sometimes I do get concerned with Carter with when he tries to bomb forward and pretend that he's a prime Rio Ferdinand. But I thought he had a really good game. But it was that left side for me, McLaughlin and Cashin.
Yeah,
I really did think they performed well. And there was a lot of positives, but I thought that left-hand side, it was proving to be quite solid for us.
Yeah, I think I've said a number of times now, I think McLaughlin's been steady for us. I think he gives us some experience, but he's not a starting centre half for me. I think I would have Wharton ahead of him. I'd potentially even have Cashin ahead of him. But I understand with Cashin's size, he's probably more suited to left-hand side of a 3 or at left back. I think my frustration with us bringing Cashin in was we needed a striker at the time, and we had 2 left backs that were 7 out of 10. And I'm not convinced how much difference a left back that's performing at an 8 out of 10 makes to the team when we needed a striker. That said, he is a very good footballer. I think he's also a leader. He looks like a real man on the pitch. He looks like he's getting people together. I mean, he tried to score an own goal, but then if you see the clip with him with Todd after the game, he's just rallying them. You can see he's a good egg in that dressing room. And I think that's the kind of influence you want. And I think the influence that I'm seeing from the manager, it is early days, but I think when we've got an inexperienced squad, we've got an inexperienced hierarchy in many ways at the club, I think he is, without being somebody who's going to go and start throwing teacups around in behind the scenes, like if we'd have got a Souness, he almost exudes like a Mowbray, sort of calming, experienced. I've got that know-how, and something you picked up on there, Mike, I absolutely spotted. When Miller was down, he was listening to the information around him, but it wasn't a case of you tell me what to do. You could just tell he was saying, right, tell me about this. Right, tell me about this, and I'll make the decision with the information you provide. And I just think, listen, I'm by no means saying he's a saviour. We're not safe. There's a lot of work to do, but it was a real calming influence, I thought, on the team, and I like that. In terms of that left-hand side, that's what I would say they provided. I think McLaughlin's been a bit shaky at times, but he had Carter alongside him. He had a team that were putting their bodies on the line. I criticised him against Norwich. I thought he should have gone out to the ball quicker, but I thought he was very, very good yesterday, and Cashin alongside him. It's as solid a back line as I think we've probably had in a long, long time. I know we've kept a number of clean sheets this season, but it did feel, do you know what? That's a good back line, including Todd.
Yeah, so I had quite a few positives, obviously, from this game, and I do want to get into individuals. Obviously, we got what we needed. We saw something different, which is what we've been asking. It's quite easy now to look at the two flashpoints of was it a penalty and should it have been a red card, and have a little bit more of a view on it. A quick view on yours. My personal opinion was Johnson was trying to sell the penalty. The keeper had slowed himself down. And I think Johnson needs to be a little, if he wants to get a penalty there, he needs to be a little bit more intelligent. And I thought the red card was just two players being committed. What was your thoughts on those two?
I agree on the penalty. I think the penalty was there to be won if he'd have wanted it, but he kind of wanted it without wanting the contact. I think if he'd have wanted a penalty there, not the ball, deliberately continue the way you were going, he actually moved out of the way of it and then went down. So I don't think so. I think the red card's a tricky one. I think where the contact was made was high, but when you look at it and slow it down, where the ball was, it wasn't a movement over the ball. It was just in line with where the ball was. So it was tricky. I think you've got to say that he's used excessive force to send him off. That's the terminology the referees would use. I think it was borderline. It was an orange card. I don't think there'd have been too many whinging if he'd have been sent off. Obviously not from us, but I think you could have understood it. But I think it probably would have been a little bit harsh. But on things like that, did you clock very, very near the end McLaughlin running back towards his own goal, their striker's fingernail just brushing the back of his neck, and he went down? It was the best. If anyone's got a clip of this, please put it out there. He went down, so the striker's fingernail just brushes the back of him. He goes down like he's been shot, but jumps higher than I've ever seen him jump, feet back in the air. It was the most unrealistic dive in the world, and the ref gave it. Happy days. Yeah,
there was a few times at the end where I think Baraji had a couple as well, where we did start to sell it a little bit more and get it our way, because obviously that ref's known for not exactly being one of the best refs. But yeah, we did get a few decisions our way, and that comes down to the luck as well. Yeah. I think a few things did go our way. I thought QPR started to panic a little bit. I mean, quick one on their goal. I thought it was just well taken. I mean, it was fired into him. It was a good touch. He's just battered it. I don't think there was much to go on, but that first goal for us, I thought was superb. The second goal was unreal. The third goal was well worked. There were three very good goals, weren't they?
Very, very good goals. They were goals of quality in their assists. I mean, the two assists from Tronstad, the first one to win the ball but not foul him. The foresight to, I know what I'm doing with this as soon as he won it. They've obviously worked on that. That's something that, and this is what we've talked about for weeks. Please, will you work on something that you can see something different? They were looking for Jurgensen in behind. He was making the run beforehand. That's exactly what we've been asking for. Morishita, the same. Lovely little turn. But we've seen him do that before. Johnson, if you watch it back, because they were playing sort of as a duo, albeit one was deeper, Johnson's occupying a centre half. Whereas if they were playing with just the one man, there would have been a centre half that could have intercepted that. So that plays into it as well. It's unbelievable quality on the ball. There was another one where somebody nearly slipped him. I can't remember, it might have been Baraji, and the ball just held up because the pitch was appalling. The third one, another great ball in from Tronstad. I think the way he picked him out, it was poor from them to leave somebody at 3'2" unmarked to win a header. But I think when you look at their goal, again, I think they probably will look at their goal and go, there's some neat play. I'd like to see Baraji's positioning better. I think his positioning's wrong, which means he was almost in line with the back line. So then he has to come out and then he has to try and close down. And he's not exactly somebody who does anything at 100%. So he's a bit languid and I'll do it at my own pace. So he was never going to get there. Then the centre halves, because he stepped out of that space, are coming to come across. And it's all a little bit, it's a bit sloppy. I think it's one you look at and sort of as a defensive unit, you'd be a bit disappointed without anyone making a glaring error. But they recovered really well. I didn't mind that. It's almost one of them where you go, right, come on then. What are you going to do now? What I wanted was obviously them to get a goal before half-time, but that's what I felt it needed. So otherwise they could go in and be a bit shaky. They got that. And then obviously the next goal is one of them where you go, right, if they go and get one in the second half early on, where's your personality going to be? Can you carry this on second half? And I thought we stood up to a lot of little tests throughout the game.
Yeah, I agree. The goal came out of nowhere a little bit for me. I didn't feel like... I thought it was going to be a long day. It looked like QPR were going to be the ones that were going to take control. And it just shows, how one moment of quality can completely change a game. And that pass, I mean, I said straight away, I love a through ball. There is something so satisfying about a perfectly weighted ball through the lines. And the finish and bravery as well, because the keeper was coming out from Jurgensen was great. And that just completely changed the game. And then obviously to go and get to take the lead again shows character. And yeah, I mean that was a great finish as well, very similar to Ohashi against Derby. Nice little dink.
Yeah.
And then Mori getting a header. I mean, I didn't have that on my bingo card this year, but there was a lot of positives. And I think the fact that we actually tried something different and it proved that to work was all I needed to see in this game. And to go and get the result at the end of it was obviously fantastic. I did have some negatives for the game, and it's pretty hard to come away from a 3-1 victory with negatives. But obviously Miller injury, it looks like it was a pretty nasty one. It's his Achilles, isn't it? That it looked like it was his Achilles that had popped. So that looks like it's going to be a nasty one for him. From a performance point of view, Afolayan, okay. I'd say it was a 6 out of 10 when he played. I mean, he seemed to give the ball away a little bit, tried a few things that didn't necessarily come off. And I thought it was the right thing to probably sub him off when they did. Baraji, he's not a defensive midfielder. He was messing about far too much at the back. I don't like that, especially when you're not exactly surrounded with confident players at the moment. But he did show some qualities, but he's not a defensive midfielder. I see him as someone in the final third, and they're trying to maybe shoehorn in a little bit. Ohashi, when he came on, I thought he did okay. He was on the floor within seconds of coming on, and then he was on the floor 2 minutes after that. So whilst he did show some energy, I'm not sure what he really offered. And then Cantwell, the fact that we didn't have him, he was on my negative list, but we'll get to him later. So out of the players that I've mentioned, was there any extras, or do you want to add anything else to what I've said on the negatives? And then I'm going to let you lead the positives.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, I think Barrage is the obvious one for me. I think I can cope with Afolayan. He's not played much football. I think it was the right thing to give him a shot. And if somebody's going to try things and then not come off, I want it to be somebody in that final third. So I'm okay with it. But again, I think they made the right decision. Probably wouldn't have put Alibiosu on the right wing. I think he struggled there last week. And I think he's looking like he's still some way off his fitness, which is a worry now with Miller. But I thought Ohashi looked poor when he came on. I stick up for Yuki a lot because I think he's somebody who's running to the ground. But it's almost looking a little bit more than a lack of goals at the moment. But confidence is a funny thing. Jurgensen, his touch at the beginning of the game was pretty poor. He goes and sticks that first one in, and then he finishes like Sammy Smodics was doing when he was scoring 30 a season. So I'm going to let Yuki have a bit of a pass on it at the minute. I'm just looking at the team. I think there was experience on the bench. There was options to make like-for-like subs. You've got Pickering, you've got Ribeiro was back. Forshaw is a great sub to have, I think. And I like Montgomery. I think Montgomery playing right in that sitting midfield. I'd probably have him alongside Tronstad, if I'm being honest, at the moment. And I think you've got some options there. There's not much going forward still, though. We still are lacking that extra option. I think if one of Jurgensen or Gudjonsson does get an injury, I think I'll probably be looking to switch it up and put Baraji in the 10 or Morishita right now. I think that's my worry. I think we're light there. But I can't get away from the fact that we've got somebody who can finish, somebody who can play on the shoulder. There was pace in the team. There's creativity. There's not it in abundance. It is a certain way we're going to have to play to get things. But we've already seen if we keep this tight and we're capable of doing that, even when we were down to our 7th and 8th centre halves, we've got somebody like a Good Johnson, and now it's seemingly a Jurgensen that can finish out of nothing. So I'm comfortable in the fact that I can see a way we can get results now. And we've ticked it down. We're now down to about 5 wins we need, which is what we just have to keep doing right now.
Well, I'm going to leave it with you to carry on with the positives with the players. So I have my list. Who are your standout performers?
I think Murray, obviously the goal, and then his confidence after that. I think he's just playing himself into a bit of form, a bit of fitness. I thought that all of the defence were very, very solid. I don't think you could really separate them. I think in different ways. It was lovely to see Carter finishing 90 minutes. I actually thought it was him that had gone down initially when it was Miller, and I was a bit panicked.
Yeah.
I thought Torp made a really good save at a really important time. He's been a bit shaky a little bit the last couple of weeks. People have put him under pressure. You know what the Championship's like. They bully them and refs don't always give the decisions. But I think he's almost looked like a keeper that's wanting to perform and maybe prove that he's the right one. And I don't know why, because he is number one for us. But he's just been making a couple of decisions in the last couple of weeks where I thought, you probably didn't need to come for that, whereas previously he's never really done that. But I thought he was back to his best. He looked as good a keeper as you're going to get in the Championship, really. I thought that the Bradgie's just such a juxtaposition. He does some things that you think, what a ball to Alabiosu. And then the next minute you think you're just not in position. He's not a defensive midfielder. That's the top and bottom of it. But the front two, Good Johnson played a role, but Jurgensen's finishing was good. But for me, the standout was Tronstad. I thought he was just everything you would want. He was a leader. He was winning tackles. His passing was good. It was simple at times, but then he was actually passing forward. He was winning the ball further up the pitch. He was a bit of a monster yesterday, and he is somebody that I think if he got an injury, for example, you can put Forshaw there, but we've seen Forshaw struggles with injuries. I would then be very worried about us because I think you just get at us too easy. I thought Sonny Tronstad was head and shoulders yesterday, actually. I think there was some good performers, but it all came from him.
Yeah, I had Tronstad as my man of the match. He was doing the dog work. He was being creative. He had vision. He was being sensible with the ball. He rarely gave it away. He was obviously battling for the ball back that led to a goal, which is a couple of weeks in a couple of games now. He's done that recently. So I had Tronstad as my man of the match. As much as Murray and Jurgensen obviously will get quite a lot of plaudits, and rightly so, for the balls that they were playing, I just thought the consistency of Tronstad across the whole game and his general leadership. I said that he was probably one of the ones I would have had as captain. Exactly the kind of thing that you said last week when you see at half time him coming on and going through all the cones and just showing some energy there where you've got Cantwell trotting through. Little things like that make a big difference for me. And I thought he had a fantastic game. Going on to Tote. So he's been called out a couple of times. So I did get in the comments of the single podcast I did last week because someone had called him about the second goal. I still don't think I still don't think he could have done much better with the second goal last week. He's been battered across him. He goes for hands unless he secures it, which he isn't going to do. Because let's remember, it's the EFL. He's not an elite goalkeeper, so we need to rein in our expectations. I think foot or hand, that's probably coming back into danger. So unless he leaves it or just deflects it slightly, and again, you're risking, if I only do it lightly, is it still going to go in? I don't blame him at all for that second goal. So I'll argue with anyone for that one. Now, there was also a comment about him being shaky on corners and long throws. I think that it's showing good mental strength from him that he's willing to come out and keep going. That's one thing that we've talked about with Pears. He shows that he's willing to let things just slip off his shoulders a little bit. And I quite like that. Now, they're being crowded out, they're struggling with corners and long throws. At the end of the day, in the EFL, You can't compare it to the Premier League. The Premier League, you've got VAR, all the cameras are there. So people can't do the dodgy stuff on keepers. You know, they can't crowd them out because it's going to get called out. Plus, I think fouls are probably given a lot more on goalkeepers in the elite leagues.
Yeah.
EFL, they just let to do all the nasty stuff that we see in Sunday League. So I do think that we need to understand with the goalkeepers at this level that they're not going to be perfect. So when it's all relative, if we say Totha's had a good season or a good goalkeeper, I'm not saying he's the next David Raya and he's going to go on to massive things. I'm just saying for this level, I think he's really good. And I think that if you're going to be crowded out in the long throws and the corners and you've got massive strikers and defenders in front of you doing all the dodgy stuff, you're going to struggle. Because there was one yesterday where he's come to punch it and it looked like it was given as a corner because apparently he'd punched it out, but I don't think he had. But he's not massive. He's not a unit. So the fact that he's coming for these just shows that he's got really good mental strength. So I think he's had a couple of comments against him that I don't necessarily agree with. But I think for the whole team, I think it was a really good day. And I think when you've won 3-1 and you've seen a game out and you've seen yourself rise out the relegation area and you've got a new manager and you're seeing all these new things, it's just nice to talk about some positives. So we had obviously the 3-word reaction. Was there any ones there that took your eye?
There was. I will just find them for you. And there's one that will lead nicely, I think. There was a Valentine's Day massacre. Going to be honest, I'm not sure it was a massacre, but I liked it. Played with belief. Fair from Michael Heap. Brendan Crisp, forward pass goal. And then the other one was better without Cantwell.
Well, that is going to lead us on to something. But before we do that, we have got to talk about the next game, which is on Friday evening. And that is a home game against Preston that are in the dizzy heights of 7th. They've only won one in recent games, but they are up in 7th. So what's your thoughts on this one?
We know Preston, I mean, I think they sold 5,500 earlier on last week. We know, generally speaking, against Preston, ignore the Deepdale game, but even so, the games tend to go in the favour of the opposition. Don't know why. Maybe it's big away followings. We know they will they'll come very, very prepared. They are a team of men. They are a team like a little bit of quality. I don't think they disagree with that too much. I'm not saying, that we have more quality necessarily. I just think they lack a little bit of quality. They're a bit more workmanlike. They're in the image of their manager. I think when you look at the team that they've got, they have basically said, listen, this is our budget. We are going to get the best we can within it. And we're going to get people who will give us 7 out of 10 every week and will give us everything they've got. They're experienced players. They've gone a very, very different route to us. I think having seen what I've seen at Deepdale earlier on in the season, I didn't think they were that impressive. They've fallen a little bit, although they got a draw yesterday. My worry would be that they would come and beat us physically. They would come and do what the team, was it Thomason's team that got really, really bullied? They could potentially come and do that. But I don't worry too much about that with this team anymore. I think that the Deepdale game was a big moment for us. I think we stood up. We had George Pratt making his debut. We were down to the bare bones, and we stood up to it. And then I look at people yesterday, people like McLaughlin, Carter, Tote, Alabiosu to some extent, but Cashin, Tronstad, Forshaw, they're not going to be bullied. So I don't worry about that. I think we have the players that if we get a chance, we can score. And that's something that feels alien to us. So I genuinely think on the back of going to QPR, and we wanted a win, of course we did, but we'd have taken a draw. I think that with fact we got a win and a performance that we can see something to build on. The players will have the same. They'll roll into this week and think, oh, you need that early win, because all of a sudden they'll be listening to O'Neill going, he told me that and that worked. Right, I'm going to listen. It sharpens the focus. There'll be a decent crowd. There'll be a decent atmosphere. I think the first goal decides it, but I don't think we'll lose. Now, that's famous last words, of course it is, but I don't think we will. I think we'll have a bit of momentum here. I think they're not that good. They are 7th, but I've said a number of times now in this league, I go off form rather than where you are in the league. I think there's the odd team. There's probably an Ipswich that got a bit of quality. Maybe you could Coventry had a bit of quality against us, didn't they? Where it just made the difference in key moments rather than dominating us. But I think Preston are very similar to most championship teams in that you go on a bit of a run, you can find yourself nearly up there, but you could easily be at the other end of the table. It just depends on the season you're having. I look at them, they're a team who don't play with the ball. They're not on great form. I think this is one that we should be saying, do you know what, minimum is a point, but I think this should be ticking our wins down to only needing 4 after Friday.
Yeah, I want to see us go for this one. I think there's a few things going in our favour to go over things that you've just said. The fact that actually out of the two teams, form, ours is better form. It's at home. It's a Friday evening. So like you say, there should be some atmosphere there at Ewood. I think the fans are feeling a little bit more positive, obviously, after this win and getting a new manager. As much as we hate the people above the management, it's nice to see that we have got that new manager. So it is a local game as well, so there's that. There is a few things going in our favour, and as long as we really try and go for it, and I can see something positive, I'm happy. And after seeing the game that we've just seen, there's something to build on there. So I'm excited about this one. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say I'm overly positive, but before, me and you have messaged each other, and it's like, you see a game coming up and you're just like, we could do without this game, or just can't be bothered with this one, because you just know that it's going to be some abject performance and you're probably going to get beat and the atmosphere is going to be toxic. But actually this one, I think the fans can look forward to it. Yeah,
I think the questions that will be asked of O'Neill's team now are, QPR were at home, and as much as they're not a possession-based team necessarily, we allowed them to have possession. They came on to us and we just picked them off. Preston are not going to want to do that. It's two teams that are going to want to play on the counter. They play differently on the counter to us, but they want to play on the counter attack. So it's a different game. I'll be very, very interested how he sets up. How does he respond to that challenge? Will he go with do you know what, this worked, let's go with it again? I don't think he will. I think he'll have a different plan for a different game. I've spoken to a couple of Stoke fans now who've said he gets the best out of his team, he makes the most of it. And that's where the advantage of being Ireland manager will come into it, is because you can't just go, well, actually, we need that extra striker, let's bring him in. You have to work with what you've got. So he's kind of been training for this for a long time. So it'll be interesting how he sets up. I think it'll tell us a lot again. There's a lot of questions there to be asked and a lot of questions to be answered. Sorry. But I'm positive about this. I am. And that's a strange place to be, because I've not felt like that for a while. But I am positive. I think there's stuff that I can really see we can build on for Friday night.
Yeah, I think the fans can look forward to it. I mean, we've got to be going for wins, like you say. Draws aren't going to help. Unless it's teams around us and it's the old relegation 6-pointers, draws aren't going to help. We have come out of the relegation area. Other people's results have gone against them, which is good for us. Looking at Preston's previous results over the last few games, they've got similar ones to us. In regards to they've also drawn against Watford. I think you're right. We've won the last 2 games against them. There's no reason why we can't go and get something out of this. But now I want to move on to the manager. So I did a quick reaction Friday. It was expected / unexpected. So we expected it to be Michael O'Neill, but it all happened relatively quickly. I think everyone had put their eggs in one basket saying it was going to be Rowett. And it obviously didn't work. So then we acted quickly and went and got Michael O'Neill. Our introduction to him has been very good after one game. There's obviously a lot more on the training ground this week to prepare us for Preston. What was your initial reaction to Michael O'Neill?
My initial reaction to Michael O'Neill was completely clouded by the fact that he's got another job, and not in the necessarily that as such, in the fact that with the position we are where we are. I go back to when we had John Eustace. If you remember the early part of Eustace into taking over, it was very wobbly. And then he used the international break to really work with the team, and we saw progression and a plan to get us over the line. And we saw that constantly with Eustace. International breaks, he'd come up with another, he'd tweak certain things that hadn't been working great. And the fact that one of the games for Ireland is on the Wednesday, we play on the Friday, I think. I actually thought it was bordering on a bit of a disgrace that we could not have a manager available in that key time, because I thought you're going to just get through and try and get some results to the international break. And then that's your opportunity as a manager to embed, right, this is what we're going to do from now to the end of the season. These are the fundamentals. It softened slightly when I really looked at our schedule, because we've got a few weeks of Saturday or Saturday, Friday, things like that. So you have a bit of time there. Whereas Eustace, if you remember, as he kept telling us, he had like 9 games in 3 days or something, whatever it was. So he was a bit more hectic, but I think he's got to place a lot of trust in his coaches. I love the fact that Phil Jones has come back in, not just because he's a Rovers fan and he's Superman, but I just love that fact that somebody there, if anyone's not listened to him on the Tippy Tappy podcast, just listen to him. He talks like a leader. He's somebody who's, without ranting and raving, he's not going to leave people in any doubt what it means to just play for this football club, but what it takes to be a professional footballer. I think he's still only 33. He's going to be in that changing room, having a chat with some of these boys. You get people like maybe Igor Tyjon, for example, who wants to be a star. How powerful to be sat next to somebody like Phil Jones, who has played for Manchester United, has won endless trophies, played for England, would have had a lot more. We all know about how he struggled with basically live with one knee. But I just think that's a real masterstroke, because you can't say to Phil Jones, oh, well, I'm this, I'm that. Cantwell, for example, I'm this, I'm that. Well, you're not, are you? You could potentially be. We'll argue that a different day. But I think it's a bit of a masterstroke, that. And then you've got the people like Scott Wharton, Hayden Carter, Cashing looks the same, Tronstad, with some real leaders there for sure. I think it's just adding to the personality base. I wasn't against the appointment of O'Neill himself. I think it looks like a steady pair of hands. I think when you appoint somebody to be manager of Blackburn Rovers, we know that there's certain things going to come with that. We know that they're probably not a League One manager thinking, I tell you what, look where Blackburn are, that's a real opportunity. That's not probably going to happen. You're not going to get somebody like a Sean Dyche who's come out of a job because of the wage demands. You're just not going to get these things. So to get somebody who's a steady pair of hands, Mowbray-esque, but knows the Championship, has been around the block, I think it will do the club wonders, because we've got some inexperienced people ahead of him and some inexperienced people in the squad. And I think a calm, measured approach will do wonders. My worry, and it still is that international break. I think you have to have your manager available. But I'm not there every day. People like Sam Allardyce, Harry Redknapp, I know they're a bit old school, but they are managers that were not on the training ground every day. They used to say they didn't see Harry Redknapp till Thursday. So as long as he's coming up with his plans and he's organised enough, there's no reason the coaches wouldn't be doing that work anyway. So it can work. I have softened a bit. I thought it was poor because I saw how big of a mess we were in, but I've seen a little bit of a glimmer already. I think I like what I've seen.
Yeah, my initial reaction was very similar. I was concerned the fact it was part-time, and you rightly say when you've got a real good period to be able to work on those players, he's not going to be there. So that was a concern. The positive was very similar to what you just said. As an international manager and a very experienced one at that, you get what you're given player-wise. As much as you've got a whole country to pick from, really you're only picking from the same very small pool of players that are going to have that ability, and then it's just the odd one that might be coming through that you then got a decision to make. Plus, let's be honest, Northern Ireland aren't exactly blessed with a massive squad of elite players, and he's done quite well with Northern Ireland, and he's got some good results in his time. I do like the fact that he has surrounded himself with some influential ex-players. I think it's great to have Phil Jones back just because he is Rovers. It feels like it could be Tony Park's 2.0 right there. But I agree. I think you've got players there that he's going to lean on. Coaches there that he's going to lean on. Players can look at these coaches and actually respect them from a point of view, the fact that they do have some coaching experience, but also have done it on the pitch. There seems to be a passion there. These players were passionate players as well. And from what I've seen, and it's a very, very small sample size on Saturday, is there seems to be a little bit of passion there. That he's saying the right things in his interviews. He seems like the kind of person that does take ownership, which is what I like. I think that's what frustrated me with Ismail, and I think a few other people have said the same. The fact that he never took responsibility. I think there will be some element of that here. No. It could be a masterstroke. It really could. I'm just as pissed off as everyone else to do with everyone above management. The fact of where the club's going. I'm trying to look past that now, because if I can't look past that, I'm just not going to enjoy supporting this club. And if I'm not enjoying it, what's the point? So I am just trying to focus on the football right now. And right now, I think that this could work out. This could work out. I just want to see the players now raising their game, taking all on board what they need to take on board, and just really showing on the pitch what they can do. And they did that Saturday. We need that to continue. And that comes down to now the manager keeping them and the management team keeping them going.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely imperative that we keep our place in the Championship. I think last time when we went down, Mowbray would have kept us up if he'd have had one more game. We had the spine of a really experienced team that we kept. We had a little bit of stardust when we bought Dak and things like that. I just can't see it being the same this time around. I think there's key players that would go. There's key players that will go possibly anyway. But I just think we could be in a bit of a pickle if we go down. I actually could foresee a situation where Phil Jones is given the reins. So that might be a masterstroke again, but he's extremely inexperienced. I think we need to stay in the Championship is the top and bottom of it. And he's done a similar job. I mean, I've spoken to you about one of the Stoke boys has spoken to me. He sent me a screenshot after 44 games of one of them where from the manager being taken over, roughly a year it was, near enough. 44 games, Stoke were third in the table and most points that gained at that point. And when he took over, they were very near. They were a similar position to us. He's going to do a video with us this week, but he said very similar things. These will resonate with us. We were racked with FFP. He said they'd overspend. Now we're not in that situation, but his budget was cut year after year after year. He had to use academies, loans. Every time they got a sort of a structure in the squad, it was ripped away from him. And they've said that they feel he's the best manager they've had since Robins. They kind of ignore him for a minute. They feel he's the best manager that they had when it was a bit of a basket case, wasn't it, at Stoke? And they just wish he'd been given the money. So it sounds Mowbray-esque. It sounds a calm, steady pair of hands who knows what he's doing. And I think it's as good as we could have got. I mean, people were banging on about Rowett like he was the second coming of Jesus. He has had some decent runs as Rowett, but I know he had a decent effort with Birmingham, and it was a very different and a difficult situation because Mowbray was ill. But at the end of the day, he took them down. He's not a manager that was doing particularly well with Oxford. You could spin it either way, I think, with Rowett. So I like the fact they were going for Championship managers that have got experience rather than plucking out, the equivalent of a Morishita from wherever. That was pleasing. I think considering some of the names that were mentioned, we could have done a hell of a lot worse, was where I was at. Having seen and listened to a lot and done a lot of research on him, and I'm going to do a video with the Stoke boy, I'm getting more positive. And then Saturday only added to that, not just because of the result, but because actually I could see a way forward. And I thought, do you know what? There's one or two things there that you've done that I really like. Actually, one or two things that I didn't see Ismail do the whole of his time. I mean, his start of applauding the supporters when he came out and recognising that they're actually there was a good one. So, yeah, I liked him. He didn't talk about next season. He just turned around in his first interview and pulled no punches. He wasn't trying to pretend. He wasn't telling us lies. He said, we've got 15 games to stay up. But it doesn't matter how we get the results. I don't really that bothered about performances right now. If we can get them, great. And I like that. We've just got to find a way to win with the players we've got. And I then saw that on the pitch. So far, he's told us the truth. And I've seen that on the pitch. Keep doing that and I'll have no qualms.
And that's the thing. Last time we spoke, we didn't even think that he would be a manager on the shortlist. We thought it would potentially be a Rowett or someone along those lines, someone that had no club, because we said who would want to come to us right now, because like you say, we're an absolute basket case. And the reason I think he has obviously accepted it is he's a part-time role, so he can come in and do both roles. So it's that asterisk, that he's there. I don't know what the long-term plan is for the club. I think it completely depends on the success of this season and the captain side of things. Is he going to come in and change the captain? Would that cause ripples amongst the squad, or would it be a positive? Would it be a negative? Because Cantwell didn't play. Apparently it's an injury that he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Can you foresee any change in the captaincy?
I think if you're Michael O'Neill and you come into a club and you're tasked with just keeping the club up, you don't really get involved in anything like that. The player's contracted longer than you, and reportedly he's the highest paid player at the club. So I think it's a dodgy ground to start doing things like that. I think that's what you would do in the summer. It's a different thing to just not play him. And the fact that he's not been available, coincidentally, for another long trip, is a bonus for him, because now you've no need to put him back in and you can just pick the team that's best. And if you're winning, it's very difficult whether you're captain or you are on $100,000 a week. I don't really care. If you're winning and the team's got a way of playing, then you wait your turn. So I think Cantwell's given himself a problem now. I think O'Neill, I wouldn't tackle that as in a permanent change of captain. I think you just pick the best players and then your captains are who's ever on the pitch. Personally, Sonny Tronstad will be my captain all day long. Or Scott Wharton if he was fit. And it was lovely to see Scott Wharton the other day in some of the training videos. It's great to see him back on the grass. But I think that's for a different day. Yeah, I wouldn't be making wholesale things like that, albeit I probably would subtly, because he'd be on my bench at best.
Well, he's going to be interesting because he is someone that can make difficult decisions. It's been proven when he was at Stoke. And it's going to be interesting when Cantwell's back, because if we do put in some performances and there isn't a place for him, is he going to shoehorn him in? And I really don't think he will. The fans seem to be getting increasingly frustrated. I mean, it was great that he came, did what he did in the club shop. I think that shows something great to give back to fans. But as a player on the pitch, he's not been performing as we need him to, as a leader or a player. And it's going to be interesting when he is back, if we do get a few results, because I want my manager to be making these difficult decisions. And he is someone that seems to be willing to do that. I want to see now from Cantwell a return to form. I want him to now respond to this. When he's back from injury, I want him to respond to this. I want him to come in and if he gets his opportunity on the pitch, to show what he can do. We know he has talent. We know he has confidence for days in himself. But I wanted to see him doing what Morishita was doing, where he's getting the ball, looking up, playing that killer pass. That's what I want to see from Cantwell, and I haven't seen it. So it is going to be interesting now that we've had another performance to go with a long list of performances where when Cantwell hasn't played, we've played well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know if Todd Cantwell's been playing with an injury that's really hampering him. Maybe he's been battling through for the team. I mean, the other week we were talking about Taylor Gardner-Hickman and saying, I'm not thinking he's playing that well. I don't think he's that good. But then you find out that he's got all sorts going on in his personal life. Now, that might be an ability thing. That might be something that's just, they are human beings. But we don't know that. So we can only go off what we see on the pitch. And what I'm seeing is Todd Cantwell playing. And when he doesn't seem to be 100% fit, he doesn't seem to play. So I've got to work on the basis he is. And I think we move the ball quicker. I think we have more energy and we look a better team without him. Now, some of that goes down to the manager for me. I think if you can't get the best out of your players, particularly your best players, the ones with the most ability, then I do question the manager a little bit. However, when it comes down to Todd Cantwell, this has been a familiar story for a significant number of managers. So then you have to start looking at the individual. I think I go back to the Hull game. I go back to the QPR game when they had 10 men last season. There are times when he looks a cut above on the pitch, but those times are becoming few and far between now. And the majority of the times are becoming ones where I'm frustrated with him. He's got the ability to turn it round, albeit I don't think he has as much ability as a Bradley Dack did. You know, I think sometimes we get lost in this, oh, Cantwell, yeah, he's got this ability. Let's hope he can do it every week. I don't think he's actually that good. I think that's ultimately the reason why he's playing in the Championship. I don't think it's a case of a wasted talent. I just don't think he is that good. But he has some talent. He can find a pass that not everyone else can. So I'd like to see him in the team. But equally, I think I'll give him till the end of the season. And if the pattern continues that we look better without him, I'm happy to move on in the summer.
Especially when he's on the wages that he's on.
Reportedly on over double the majority of the players. And we are a team that struggles FFP-wise to fund big wages. Then they could be used better, couldn't they? I mean, if we go and use them on 5 Dion Denevers, I'm not that fussed. But if we go and buy an Andre Johnson or a Jurgensen that can make a difference, then I'm all for it. If that money could be used to keep Hayden Carter longer, Balash Tote longer, Johnny Tronstad, if that was a deciding factor, I'd rather one of them was given that kind of wage.
No, I agree. But before we do finish the pod for the week, how positive are you feeling now? So obviously last time we spoke together, we were feeling very negative. We knew Ismail had obviously gone. We'd had some pretty poor results, but now we've got a good win under our belts. Players have shown some form. How positive are you for the immediate future?
Yeah, like you say, I was particularly concerned because I didn't know who's coming through the door. I thought the team needed a lot of work. I thought I didn't really see a clear way forward for us. But I've seen that. I've seen us win. We've picked up a win against Sheffield Wednesday that we had to, and then we've picked this one up. And what I'm looking at now is a team that needs probably 5 wins from about 14 games. Well, that's more than doable now. So I'm positive now. I really am. I think we've got a manager that will get, from what I've seen so far, listen, I'm not getting carried away, but from what I've seen so far, we've got a manager now that will get the most out of what he has at his disposal. And that wasn't what we had before. So I now think we've got as good a chance as we could have had of staying up. And that's what we need to be doing. Just focus on that. Get ourselves out of this mess. Get over the line. And then go again.
Yeah, and we're still relying on teams around us to be hitting some poor form. We've got West Brom, Portsmouth and Leicester dropping below us. Obviously, Oxford haven't exactly been doing too well. I think we need to remember there's still 4 points from us to Charlton and Norwich, and there's actually 7 points to 16th. You know, it's still a big thing to climb the league. So I think we need to be realistic in the fact that even if we do have this new manager bounce and things do start to go our way, it isn't like we're going to be a couple of wins away from being 13th and there being loads of teams beneath us. I think there is still a cluster of teams that are in the mire, and we are one of them. It would just be nice to have this new manager bounce, a couple of wins, and if results go against them, it just gives you that buffer. And then we just start to feel a little bit easy. But this is going to be a tough season. This is going to go down to the last few weeks and maybe even the last day for us. And I just hope that the QPR game wasn't a flash in the pan.
Yeah. I mean, I maintain I'd said we needed to find at least 3 wins in February, and we've got 2 of them so far. So we're kind of a little bit ahead of schedule. But I think what I am wary of, if you want to look at it that way, is yes, we're 19th. Portsmouth are 2 games in hand now. They've not exactly been winning for fun, so you can't work on the basis they're going to win all of them. But they only need to win 1 and they're above us. Charlton and Norwich are not catchable within a game. So Yeah.
And they're showing good form as well.
It's not, by no means is this a done deal, but we can only focus on what we can do. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, if I was Michael O'Neill, I'd be turning around and going, do you know what? We need 5 wins, and there are games that we can get them from. But you go and get a bonus one at QPR, just don't let yourselves down now. Now, Preston was one that I earmarked because we've got some tricky fixtures. I think we've got to at least get a point from that. But I'd rather see us go and try and win the game. I think games at the moment, just go and get the 5 wins. Even if it means you lose a couple, you've got to take that gamble. We're at the stage of the season now where if it was 0-0 with a couple of minutes to go, I'm not saying you throw Todd up for a corner, but we've got to roll the dice a bit here.
I agree. But people, put your comments down below. What are your thoughts? How positive are you right now? Is it still a mountain to climb, or do you think we can all be nice and positive? Whilst you're there, obviously give us a like and a subscribe. But Mark, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go?
No, I'm all good, mate. It was nice to see. It was nice to see a man that looked like he knew what he was doing on the bench. It was nice to see some collective togetherness from the team, the coaches, and it's nice to I really enjoyed that win. What I'd said in my reaction was it felt like a win. The Sheffield Wednesday one kind of felt like one of them, please don't lose it. It was almost relief. Actually, against QPR, I enjoyed elements of the game. I thought that it's been a long time since I've enjoyed one of our performances. And listen, we are positive today. On Friday, we might want to be throwing computers, tellies, everything out the window, but we are where we are. Let's enjoy it. Let's try and get a bit of momentum going, and let's get behind the boys on Friday.
Exactly. We have said we make no apologies for being supporters. Our emotions are just as high after a win as they're just as low after a loss. We try and stay balanced. We try and talk about things from both sides of the coin. But this week we are feeling positive. It was 3-1. It was away. We've got a new manager. We've got things to look forward to. We've got a game to look forward to. So what are your predictions? Put them down below. But as far as we're concerned, we're excited for it. But Mark, thanks for joining me this week.
No, and once again, Mike, thank you for stepping up last week. It was a busy personal week, but we're back now. We've got a win. We've got a new manager, like you said. Let's come on, boys. Let's get this sorted. Let's get us, playoffs, 13 points, Mike. It's doable. It's doable.
You never know. You never know. Right. Let's call it there then. It was great. Well, let you go back to your Valentine's weekend. And everyone, I hope you've had a good one. And we hope that next week we're going to be talking about more points, more positivity. But yeah, we'll see you next time.